I think that this can be like a bigger Asian community. And in a time where we were all like really hungry for human connection and deeper conversations, it's like, why don't you talk about some other topics that are important?
Welcome to the WazaMedia Podcast. WazaMedia is a digital marketing agency that believes in the power of storytelling. We show businesses and individuals how to communicate with laser focus in a media-saturated world. It's been a while since we've had a podcast, and life has been crazy, and I'm not going to apologize for it because I'm just going to roll the punches. And I really missed doing these podcasts, and I'm really excited to have a special guest. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Brian, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been trying to do this for a while, so I'm excited to sit down with you and chat.
I'm really excited to have you on here. For our audience, I'm going to do a quick bio on him. But I think it would be actually, Brian, I apologize. The way that this format, and it's because I haven't done it in so long that I forget. So what we like to do with WazaMedia is, because we believe in the power of storytelling, we really like our guests to kind of tell their story themselves. So could you give us your story of who you are and what brings you here?
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. So a little bit about me. It's going to be a bit all over the place. I like to dabble in a lot of stuff, but let's start from childhood. So I live in the DMV currently, which is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, but I was originally born and raised in South Florida, like the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. First generation American-born Chinese, gamer at heart. I love playing games. I always tell people I like to play the real-time strategy games like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, which plays a lot into like some of the things I'll talk about later. Because of my interests in being like a nerd in computers and stuff, I wanted to be a computer engineer, computer programmer along those lines, right? But I ended up switching to pharmacy in college because I had some family events happen. My grandpa passed away. My grandma was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So it was a little bit of a difficult time for me personally, because I was like, there's no one in the family that was in the medical field. And I felt as though being the oldest, I wanted to make sure I can do something. So I ended up switching to pharmacy. So I did the pharmacy thing, went to pharmacy school at the University of Florida, did a year of residency in Sarasota. Beautiful beaches down there, white sand, blue water, clear blue waters, always recommend. And then I did my second year residency in Pharmacy Informatics at Salt Lake City. Gorgeous place. After that, I took my first postgraduate job in Minnesota. Horrible place because it's very cold. Coldest was like -75 that time, but that's what I currently do right now. I am an informatics pharmacist, not in Minnesota. I live in DC. We work remotely full time. I moved here 2 years ago, but pretty much dabbled in a lot of the infectious disease related stuff when I was there. That was what I was hired to do, build that into Epic. But that project ended in January 2019, still kind of doing some work in pharmacy informatics related to pharmacy reports. But on the side, probably more of the interesting part for your podcast is I have a YouTube channel where I talk about pharmacy informatics, and a bit about my vlogs. I have another YouTube channel that I started, and probably the bulk of the podcast today, which is called Subtle Asian Voices. And then I have a company I started with a couple others called Pharmacy Informatics Academy, where we aim to teach pharmacy informatics education to students.
So you've bounced around a lot, and you said you got to DC the last 2 years. So you were West Coast, East Coast, I don't know if they call it South Coast. They don't call it
Us, like DMV or.
No, I'm thinking like with Florida, we have West Coast, we have East Coast. I'm just thinking North. Okay, dirty South. And then what do they call people in Minnesota?
Midwest.
The Midwestern?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more a weird bunch over there. Stay away. Is whatever.
Now, you mentioned a little bit of gaming and stuff. I remember playing StarCraft growing
Ooh,
up, and one thing that came up to mind as it just recently got released was Age of Empires. Um,
what
but
you
that
talk about
was
back then, right? Now, there's a new one. Is there a
oh
new
yeah,
one?
there's a new one
Oh,
now. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a new one out.
Yeah, those are my type of games. But the unfortunate thing is that I forced myself to quit like 2 years ago. Um, I am too addicted. It's very fun, but you give me a
Yeah,
game and I'll just stay on there all day.
I will say that it was this year that I finally stopped playing Pokemon Go.
Oh, that's a
I
fun
was
one.
really into it starting in 2016 when it launched, and I just got so busy doing with everything I just couldn't keep up. And so that was like that was the longest I've played any game
It's a fun game.
consistently. It's a great game. It's a fun game, and there certainly had a lot of there's a lot of incentive for playing the game, and that's what really kept me going. And the fact that traveling became fun because going to new places,
Mm.
and then the pandemic hit, and then it wasn't as fun. So being stuck at home, not really going out because a lot of the work I do is suitable at home. But that was I guess it was a change of pace. I found other things to occupy the time, and that's more with this bass guitar, which is about an arm's reach away. So
Mm.
trying to get that into the mix.
Did
Um,
you at least catch all 150 or 151? 151.
oh, there's a lot more. Oh, there's a lot more.
At least the
Oh,
core 151. Did you get each catch those?
the biggest thing with Pokemon Go was the leveling system. Everyone was all
Ooh, that
big
was
about
hard.
getting to level 40 because at the time you were capped at level 40 and you
Yeah,
could still gain more experience, but you can get any more levels. And then they bumped it to 50, but it's like millions and millions of points that you need, and it would take people a long
it's a
time.
grind.
Yeah, that's a lot of grinding. And then there was a community that of people in my neighborhood that would play. We would go to use augmented reality and go to physically go to places in order to battle gyms and stuff like that. So there was a community aspect of it,
Mm.
which was interesting, and that really brought people together. And in my travels, I got to meet with other people and just random people, and it was fun. So speaking of community, which is kind of the reason why we're talking today, is want to talk more about Subtle Asian Voices,
Mm.
your podcast that I've started to start listening to even more,
Mhm.
and really love your last episode, and we'll dive into it. But for our audience that doesn't know about your podcast, Subtle Asian Voices, can you give us a brief description of it?
I'll try to keep it as brief as I can because I always like to tell the backstory about how we got started. And that is before Subtle Asian Voices existed, it started as Subtle Cantonese Dating. And we launched the podcast. It was me and my friend Norman in like March or April of 2020. So, around when the pandemic had hit, and all of us were just really striving to find people and human connection. And we're like, you know what? Let's create a YouTube channel, talk about our dating life, call it Subtle Cantonese Dating. We both speak Cantonese. Also, at the same time, a lot of people that were trying to date were like, let's do something interesting. So I saw a lot of people live streaming their first dates, or like one girl and 10 guys, or one guy and 10 girls. And I was like, why don't I do that? Let me create this YouTube channel and bring in some of my dates and live stream it. But everyone said no. They're like, no, why would I do that? They're like, Brian, no, I'm not going on the live stream with you. So unfortunately, that didn't work out. But we did, bring on other people to talk about their dating lives, and that was fascinating. But I remember one day, it was like probably 1 or 2 months in, my friend Jasmine was like, "Hey, Brian, I love the conversations you're having. It was a live stream, so nothing was scripted. But I think there's something more here. I think that this can be like a bigger Asian community, and in a time where we were all like really hungry for human connection and deeper conversations. It's like, why don't you talk about some other topics that are important, like mental health? And it was at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. So talk about how Asians and Blacks intersect. Talk about our culture, how we can connect with each other. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Another friend said the same thing and was like, hey, I have these three individuals, one of which was Tiffany, that I'd never met, all that were scattered all over the US. I think there'd be some people that will love to help facilitate some of your conversations too. And we talked and we're like, why don't we try our best to represent all the topics and conversations we would have as a collective of Asians? And let's call it Subtle Asian Voices.
Now, looking at some of the topics, you've got a variety of different careers. There's someone who does fitness. You've got someone that's done real estate, and you've got some. You got a lot of different careers that I see, which is great because I think it's interesting how they're, especially in my culture being Filipino, we're really stigmatic to go into these three places, which is engineering, something in the medical field or hospitality. But there's different range of careers and people talking about them, which is great. And there's also a large range of topics. Tell me about the topic range, and it's a live stream for most of the episodes. So the fact that you can improv and different things will pop up in the chat, and then you can talk and react to it, I think really adds a different dynamic as a live. It's more of a live show that is recorded later. So you have a live show on the internet.
Yeah, I think people find it really engaging. I think it's great because, again, going back to how it was a pandemic, all of us were just wanting to interact with other people. So we haven't done as much live streams as we did in the beginning, but when we were doing live streams, it was great because we got to meet. I met so many people doing those things. We were always getting requests. Hey, can I come on the show? But yeah, it was really, really fun. I learned a lot about myself too, by the way. I was like, why did I say that? I gotta, better handle questions a certain way, interview people a certain way, and things like that. But we learned a lot. It was a great time. And to be honest, I think we are like at 8 people now that are part of Subtle Asian Voices. And they have been, honestly, went from strangers to some of my closest friends during that time.
Are there any topics that that have become memorable to you, or that really stick out? I'm the one that sticks out to me was and you mentioned Tiffany in your last episode. You guys had a happy hour session, and there was a part where Tiffany was talking about marriage in her culture, and I felt like I could relate on how the dynamics were between my parents and I, and their pressure for me to get married and who to get married at the time. So, but bringing it to the different topics, is there one or two particular topics that you found that really came out and resonated with you as you were talking in this community?
I think there's two. So being a little unfair here, there's two. One, I think that resonated with all of us, and every single day, us in SAB, we have a little group we chat about. Mental health comes up literally every day, and we will blow up the group with like 500 messages, sometimes even 1,000, because we all feel so strongly about why do we not talk about mental health? We were trying to talk about it more, and we actually had a whole series, I think about a month or two. It's our most watched videos, is the mental health ones, because we think it should be talked about more. And I guess, like, to bring it to the other one that really hit home for me, aside from the mental health ones, was about how Asian men in particular were raised to suppress their emotions. And I personally haven't really shared publicly about it. I still find it a little difficult to talk about. But I remember talking with one of my good friends, Sean, who brought all of us together. He was talking about how when he was raised, he was taught to suppress his emotions, be stoic. We're supposed to be emotionless. And it made me think, I didn't know that. I thought I was the only one. I didn't know anyone else felt like that. And one of the best things that can depict what I'm talking about is my dad always told me, ever since I was like 3, 4, 5 years old, you can always bleed, but you can never shed a tear. And that's how I was raised. No matter what situation I was in, crying was not allowed, and I would hold back my tears in all situations. And I realized that that's not healthy. So I think mental health and the ability to relate to others, because we don't talk about our feelings, was huge for me. So those are two big topics we talked about.
You talked about how the desire for just a connection is big, and how the live show with getting comments from your audience in real time really builds that connection. But that's during the live portion. Is there a part of Subtle Asian Voices where the conversations continue when you're not online during the show? Do you have do you take things over to, like, say, a Discord group or do a Facebook group, and where you can have offline, but it's online? I don't know how that works. It's online, but it's offline. It's offline from the show, but it's online in the sense that it's on internet or in social. So, yeah. Is there a place where the conversations continue?
Within our direct group of those of us, so there's about 8 of us that run Subtle Asian Voices behind the scenes. That happens on a daily basis, but we do branch out and engage in conversations all over the place, not necessarily tied to Subtle Asian Voices, but we've been part of so many conversations where we get invited to either participate in or help facilitate conversations all over the place. Common ones are how Blacks and Asians intersect, how we can help support both of our communities, especially during the pandemic with Black Lives Matter, all the Asian hate. We held a lot of conversations with other YouTube channels and other Facebook groups representing Subtle Asians to talk about these things. Same thing with mental health. We're like one of the Facebook groups, Asian mental health. We're in there. We talk about things over there. We've been trying to work with different colleges to talk to undergrads. And so we're in a lot of, so the answer is yes. It's just kind of all over the place. We all try to do different things. So
I like how you do have the conversations you can meet are offline from the show, but also going to the universities and going to where some of these mental health issues may be arising. I know I've personally felt a lot of pressure, and when I was going through university, doing my undergrad in nursing, which was something I didn't really want to do, but I did it because I needed to get out. I needed to get out from my parents' roof, and I made sure I did it. But yeah, the times are different, and the way that we're coping, and plus we're still in a pandemic, so all the more reason why we got to take care of ourselves. So I'm really glad that Subtle Asian Voices is taking it to the audience direct, and working with universities and stuff. With with Subtle Asian Voices, what do you see next in the future for it? I do see that you're already doing community involvement. You're doing community outreach. Is there a future Subtle Asian Voices conference or a meetup? Because I know, and in 2021, we're coming up at the end. I can't believe it's two months left.
Right up 2021.
I feel like I'm still processing 2020.
I'm back in 2019. I moved to DC at the end of 2019. I have not really explored DC.
Oh,
It's
man.
crazy. Time flew. Time definitely flew. We can forget about 2020. 2020 didn't happen.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
There you go.
So, but now that we're in 2021, I know I'm starting to see some more events happening around in the DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland area. So, and a couple not as many conferences. I know DC is huge on conventions and getting trade shows and stuff here, just because it's in the center of everything. But do you see what do you see as the next step for Subtle Asian Voices as far as building and maintaining the community at large?
Yeah, I think at the heart of it, we want to be able to make the world a better place. We try to involve ourselves in different things. I think the most recent endeavor we took on, which was spearheaded by Daphne, one of our hosts, we're all immigrants, right? Or our families were. And when we heard about, especially her, when she heard about the Afghanistan crises, she felt so emotional about it. She was like, hey, I know we're tackling all these projects. Can we tackle this one too? Which falls right into our alley. And we all felt very compelled. And so we ran a month-long fundraiser to raise money. We met our goal. We raised like $1,200 that we're going to donate to all the Afghanistan refugees in the DMV area. But I think getting involved in all these things is really important to us. Now I was going on these tangents and I forget what the question was. Was it where we were moving towards and stuff?
Where do you see Subtle Asian Voices moving to as far as a community? You've established this community virtually during a pandemic, and you have a live show. You're now connecting with universities and on different topics. What's next?
I think that's a very good question. I think the medium of which those things are going to happen are probably unknown. And when I think about that, like we have talked about conferences. We're actually planning one in LA last year. We've talked about doing more live streams, of course. We've also talked about partnering with a couple educational groups to give courses, like whether it's professional development, things that talk about mental health. We actually have someone who's trained in I forget what the formal term is, but it's basically to give guidance and counseling to individuals who need mental health support. But we talked about doing professional education, all those kind of things. I don't know what medium we will dabble into, but I think the vision in the future would be somewhere along the lines of, no matter where you are in the world, if you're an Asian, you will be able to recount some experience or piece of content that you saw from Subtle Asian Voices and was like, hey, I remember, seeing something that talked about this experience, whether it's like Asians going to college for the first time, or Asians playing sports for the first time, or Asians that are transitioning from nursing to another non-medical profession. We want to make these kind of conversations like normal, because a lot of these things are not normal. Growing up, I'm like, wow, I didn't know Asians can do this or Asians can do that, because we didn't see them on the screen or in public. So something like that.
I feel our culture, I know my culture on the Filipino side, we're starting to branch out from our very generalized 3 stigma professions, which is great. And I know I have broken from it myself, and I know with my 2 kids, I will make sure that my goal is that they get to explore the world and explore their skills and talents and find out what works best for them. And because that's what will, as long as they can put food on the table and they have to ask, Papa, can I have some money to go eat? Like, no. you gotta learn how to do it, and you gotta get some personal finance, and then find a way for your dream job to help put a roof over your head. So that's how I'm gonna do it with my kids. So I know with you being a podcast host and also being a YouTuber, I'm sure you've had a couple influencers. Not influencers. You have YouTubers or podcasts that may have influenced you into the current style that you do. So let's start on the YouTube side. Who's your biggest YouTuber influence that has influenced you?
Oh man, now that's a difficult question. I'll say, actually, I have to give you like a short list, but then I'll give one that's most relevant to Subtle Asian Voices. I can say that as a YouTuber and someone who likes cameras, Peter McKinnon, I'm sure, is a huge one for a lot of people. His creativity in creating videos. Ali Abdul, he's an awesome productivity guy. What's his name? Matt Diavella, minimalist producer. You're familiar with him, of course.
Yeah, he lives now in Australia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he moved out there from California. I'm like, what? During a pandemic.
I don't remember why again. I remember he talked about when he was moving and the reasons why. But I think going back to maybe even the heart of your podcast, where you are interested in talking to people who can tell stories. All of those individuals tell amazing stories. Now, Sav, I think back in college, the stories of Asian Americans that we didn't see in Hollywood was told by the Wong Fu YouTubers. And I think a huge part of these conversations are heavily influenced by Wong Fu. They are certainly the role models and the type of conversations we want to have. Probably not in shorts, just in live stream format. We're hearing and listening to real stories of all of us that are in the Asian community. But Wong Fu is probably the biggest one.
The first Wong Fu short film that I saw was Yellow Fever. That was a long time ago. It's a great one. And it was when they were still students at University of California, San Diego. And I remember when they redid it again. I think it was like 10 or 15 years. Yeah, the updated version, like version 2.0, Yellow Fever. And that was really, it was a nice nostalgic flashback to how their rise to their internet fame and beyond. So I think that's a great influence to have, especially now they have ties now with Hollywood.
You do?
And so some of the Simu Liu, who was in they did some collabs together, and then there's a couple other actors and actresses in the Asian community that they were able to work with, and now they're on Hollywood. So I guess the Wong Fu crew can say, yeah, we helped put them up there.
I mean, I have to say they've done a lot for the Asian community in terms of like getting representation out there. Huge influence. I think my first one was Strangers Again. I think I like rom-coms.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. What it is. As we're wrapping up, with I want to say I'm glad you kind of changed the name, because Sav kind of rolls off the tongue. I was thinking about when subtle Cantonese dating, SCD.
Yes.
And I'm bringing my medical side. The SCDs are the things that we put on patients' legs in order to prevent DVTs.
Yeah.
And so
that's funny.
Sav sounds savvy.
Yeah.
In a sense. So I'm glad there was that transition. I think it was a natural transition as you got more buy-in and you shared the ideas within your circle, your inner circle. And I like where it's going, and I'm looking to see where Sav goes. Brian, are there any shout outs you would like to give as we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, shout out you for bringing me onto this podcast. It's a great time. I know we've done some collabs now, so it's like always fun to engage in conversation. Second shout out goes to all my SAB crew, who has. I mean, we've grown so much together in the last year during this pandemic. So huge shout out to them. Without that, they truly are the face of SAV. Usually I'm just in the background. They're the ones that do the hosting. Um, and then plug wise, I have to say that not even related to SAV, but I want to plug it. Well, I'll plug SAV, youtube.com/subtle Asian voices. Definitely give us a check out. Lots of great content coming out. Another plug is for my own personal YouTube channel where I talk about pharmacy informatics, and I just ramble about vlogs and stuff going on in my life. And then my last plug will go to Pharmacy Informatics Academy, which is a company I formed with three individuals, hoping to train the next generation of informatics pharmacists. All free stuff. Go check it out. People who are interested can find, we're trying to collate everything into one place. So students have the resources to become great pharmacy informatics people. And that's it.
And to think that I would have been in the informatics world
Oh yeah.
years ago. That was the path for me. And maybe I would have done what you're doing is going on the nursing informatics side and stuff like that. You know, I wonder what if, but I like what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I like what you're doing too. That's pretty fun. If I could retire, and didn't do informatics, hang that hat up. Digital strategist sounds pretty awesome.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. It's pretty fun.
So,
awesome. Thanks, Brian, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching another episode of the WazaMedia Podcast. If you're interested in WazaMedia, go to our main channel over here. And if you want to listen to more podcast episodes, go over here. See you next time.